Welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast, the podcast for moms who know that when they take care of themselves, they can take better care of everyone else. That's what this podcast is all about. You will learn ways to take care of you so that you can be a better mom, a better wife, and a better person all around. Today's show is awesome. Our guest is the fabulous Susan Jeide, who has had so many health struggles and yet continues to smile and be happy and find joy. She is truly inspirational. Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and our guest today is Susan Jeide. Susan, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Susan was recommended for the podcast by my dad. He heard her speak at a conference and he said, "Oh, you have to have her on. She's so amazing." And so I was able to listen to the talk that she had given and I was like, "Oh, yes, definitely want to have her." So I'm so glad you're here. It's been a while setting things up and I'm glad this worked out. So let me briefly introduce you and then you can fill in anything I miss. So Susan has struggled with lots of health challenges, and according to doctors, she shouldn't be alive today. So she won a battle with lymphoma in 2007, and it says this: a young mother at the time, she was the only one in her group of fellow lymphoma patients who survived. And then after she finished chemotherapy and radiation, she was bit by a tick and contracted Lyme disease, which is a whole other, thing to deal with. And that cascaded into several more medical complications, autoimmune disorders, and life-threatening conditions. Susan is a mother of 3 boys, 15, 18, and 12. I put those in a weird order. And Susan also lost 5 other babies who didn't make it full term. She is a photographer, an award-winning photographer, and she really has learned through this trial to embrace life as it comes. And so I'm excited to learn from you and to hear a little bit more about your journey. So let's start off there. Just kind of more about your background, anything I missed or anything that you would add in on your background.
Oh, let's see here. That's all the health stuff, which seems to a lot of times end up consuming our life. But I have a really amazing, big, giant family, and I've always been surrounded by amazing people and support. So I feel really blessed. I feel like I've had a really full life full of travel and adventures and experiences as well, in the midst of all of the challenges that life seems to throw us. I'm always surprised when I'm not even 40. And when someone looks at all the things I've been through, they just give me this shocked look. It's like, yep. And I feel like the inside I'm in the body of like a 90-year-old, all the problems that I've had or life experiences. So it puts me in a wide gamut of being able to relate to probably almost every human on the planet because I've experienced and gone through most of the things people have gone through. So it's been a very unique, refining, exciting, hard, really hard, but an enormous amount of joy along this journey.
I love that perspective. And I think that's so interesting that you said, it allows you to just really relate and connect with other people's challenges because you've been through so much. I've found I haven't had a whole lot of hard things, but the few that I've had really allow me to reach out and to connect to people who have been through the same things. And so that's, amazing that you can see that like, oh, I've been through this and this and this. And now look at all these people that I can relate to.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit more about your health then. And 2007 was when things started to go downhill.
Yes. Well, to back it up before I had that, I had a really hard time. We found out with pregnancies. So I was, on bed rest for my pregnancies. And then when I was pregnant with my second son, I lost his twin early. And so they actually didn't think he made it, but I went on total bed rest, having to be carried around and in the hospital back and forth. And I actually passed away and came back at one of the times in the hospital when they had overdosed me on a medication. And that was like a fundamental, I would say, change, or it prepared me for the life that I would end up having, because I no longer feared death, because I knew what death was. I knew what it felt like. There wasn't fear. It was like I had this ability to walk people through from then on. I come across a lot of people who are terminally ill because of the situation I'm in. And I can know and I can testify and tell them, what that's like, and be able to help them through that transition of fear and peace. And so through I would have never guessed I would have gotten cancer and, more life-threatening situations, and then more sicknesses, to where the doctors literally wanted to just put me in ICU indefinitely. That experience of knowing what it's like, it took the fear out, because I was so calm and filled with what that is, life after death. And it was kind of a foundational point for me. So everything on top of that, I felt like has prepared me to meet every single person that comes into my life, to be able, like you said, like that's our part of our journey here, is meeting the next person that's going through a struggle, or someone's brought into my life that's already done that struggle, and we can sit together and we can talk, and then there's hope, right? And there's this relationship and this, oh, I see you. Yes, that's so hard. I've been there. And let me tell you, I'm going to sit right here and I'll hold your hand, and we're going to do this together, because you can find this peace, this joy within, no matter what circumstance you're placed in.
I love that so much. Okay. Now, I am really wondering, and we didn't say we were going to talk about this, so just tell us however much you feel comfortable with sharing, but what is life after death like?
I guess it's in a different direction.
Yeah. This is not what we were going to talk about, but
I actually didn't think I would share that either. But so here we go. So I'll walk you through the experience. I was having preterm labor. I was 27 weeks pregnant with Adam, and they had given me tons of injections of tributylin and steroids, and still contracting. And then they put it in IV with magnesium. And so tributylin makes you shake really bad, and magnesium makes you super thirsty. So I'm pouring a pitcher of water, and I'm sure you can imagine what that was like. The water went everywhere because you're shaking so bad, but I was so thirsty. So then the nurse was like, let's change you or whatever. And so the IV thing kind of started going beep, beep, beep. She's like, oh, just shut it off. Let's get you out of all these wet things. And then I'm getting back into the bed, and she starts doing the IV. And then all of a sudden I was being burned alive. And when I say burned alive, I mean burned alive. And I yelled, I'm like, I'm being burned alive. I was screaming, and she's like, oh, it's fine. I'm like, not fine. And then your immediate reaction when you're getting burned alive is to run, right? And so I go to leap out of the bed, and I go paralyzed. And then Russell catches me, puts me back into the bed, and with my last breath, I say, help, right? And there's this flurry and doctors and beeping and everything. And I, all of a sudden, Russ pulled up in my eyelids, and he's like, don't leave. And all of a sudden, everything was peaceful. It was like being home. And I knew without a question of a doubt, like, it's like I knew everything in a moment. Like, everything was clear. All the feelings, all the emotions that weigh us down in earth, anxiety, fear, anger, it was gone. Everything was gone. And it was just like pure understanding of everything, of love and clarity. And I could sense every knowledge that there was in one instance. And I could clearly, I just knew Christ was next to me. And it was like just a knowledge. I knew he was next to me. And he said, do you want to go back? And I looked at Russ and I saw this baby in my stomach, and I had already had a 2-year-old too. And I could just see the fear and the pain and the flurry of everything going around me. And I said, yes, I can't cause this pain to them. And in that second, I was back in my body, an on fire, paralyzed body with flurry and all those emotions that I had just been released from. And I was back in this body, barely hanging on. And luckily at that moment, my doctor had been making rounds. He had seen this one reaction once in his residency, came in with the antidote of calcium and shot it into me. And then I was back. So it was a flurry of miracles, which I think my life is always, just one miracle after another miracle. But I know what it's like there. It's everything. And it's so familiar. The moment you're there, just all the things that weigh us down here, gone. It's an amazing, beautiful, pure place that, I don't know. I'm blessed, super blessed. And that wasn't the last time. I passed away one other time. So I'd say that the experiences that you have might differ a little bit depending on where you're at. But I know that for me, I had a choice to come back. And because I came back, I've had just so many experiences of near-death experiences constantly, to where the doctors constantly are saying, this is humanly impossible for you to be alive with these numbers. Like, bodies don't do this, like, you shouldn't be here. There's not enough blood going to your organs. There's not enough blood going to your brain. It's an impossibility. This last year, it's a year in November, my dad had passed away, and it was super unexpected. He was super healthy, 61, suddenly had a kind of a stroke and went into the ICU. And we were in the ICU, and his blood pressure would go, 70 over, I don't know, maybe 80 or something, but that's way higher than my blood pressure is on a normal basis. And so I was thinking it wasn't a big deal. And then I watched the crash carts come in, and then I watched what happened to a human body when blood pressure is so low, which is what they've been telling me for years, how a body dies quickly. And it was really a sobering experience for me and my family to realize how I really am a living miracle, because I watched my dad pass away so quickly in front of my eyes with higher numbers than what I was sitting there with. It was a testament of, like, his hand in my life, that I'm literally being carried by no scientific explanation. I'm still here. So I try to live my day in the present, in the moment. There is such a gift in living this minute for all that it is, because if it's your last, right? Like, do you put your house in order? Do you make sure that you are living it to its fullest with the most joy, and letting go of all those things that really don't matter that much, and enhancing the relationships, and wake up each morning of, like, what can I do for someone? Even if I oftentimes I was very limited. Like, sometimes I could breathe, sometimes I couldn't, sometimes I can walk, sometimes I can't walk. So often the thing that I can do is text, or reach out to someone who is suffering that way. And they too, sometimes, like, your voice doesn't work or your hearing's not working. But for me, what I was able to do is reach out to people through text and communication, and still make a difference, even in the limited abilities of where we're at and where we're at. And I think that for me, that's the greatest thing, right? Like, we still have something to offer the world, no matter what our limitations are. And so do we wake up and we ask, and that be our intention, and what can we do? And when we get outside of ourselves, and not focus on everything that's wrong, or everything that's hurting us, or everything that is bad, it releases you. It's like this magic that you get outside of yourself. You get outside of the situation, my son, Adam, when the pain would be so bad, we would say, okay, let's talk about something that doesn't hurt. Let's find the thing on you that doesn't hurt. And we would get down to your eyelashes. Mom, your eyelashes don't hurt, right? That's right. My eyelashes feel good right now. You're right. I still have my eyelashes because at a time I had lost my eyelashes. So it's funny how you can switch your brain, and the chemistry and the flow in your house and the flow with your kids on how you set the tone. Like you can't control anything in this life, right? Like that, as much as you think you can plan your future, as much as you expect your future to be a certain way, I can guarantee you it won't be that way. It's probably never as bad as we anticipate it, right? Like some of the testing or some of the diagnoses, I would have never guessed they were that. But they're usually, when you actually get it and go through it, it's not as bad as what my mind had come up with. Or your expectations of good. I've realized that you just let go of all expectations, and then every day is a surprise. You're like super thankful. You're super excited. It's like a box full of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to expect. But when you lose the expectations, then you don't have that disappointment and that depression. And you're not robbing this very minute of living either in the past or in the future. Like my favorite quote that the kids like to is from Kung Fu Panda, and it's like, the past is history, the future is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. It's like my favorite quote because it's true. Like right now, this moment, you and I speaking right now, like what a gift, what a joy, right? Because often this minute could be robbed by something else, right? So I'm super happy I'm alive to be able to talk to someone right now.
Oh my goodness.
So
that is just amazing to me. I have never, the worst health challenge I dealt with was with my last pregnancy and just really bad morning sickness, which, just being nauseous all the time, just feeling really sick for like 3 months. It was not fun. And I know that for me, being in that, which is minor compared to what so many other people go through, I didn't want to be in the present. All I could think about was, okay, at the longest, this is going to last 9 months and hopefully a lot shorter. And all I could think about was getting out of it. So when you are in pain or sick, how do you find joy in the moment when it's kind of a miserable moment?
Right. That's a really great question. I actually have really great tips for this because I've had to master it. I've had like the masterate doctor degree and having to figure that out. So I have had pain, unimaginable pain, right? Like bone shattering pain. Like my hands would cramp up and like they would cramp up like a Charlie horse to where like your fingernails cut into your hands and you can't get them open. It would feel like someone was like sledgehammering my bones. I'd go paralyzed and seizures and you name it. Truly, when I say I have experienced probably every health phenomenon that's out there, I swear it's probably true. There's very few things I haven't experienced. So here's my trick. You can survive anything for a minute. And so if you can just get through that minute, then you got the next minute. And if you think about 5 minutes, it's too much. You just survive that minute. And then you survive the next minute. And then my next advice is try to distract yourself. Best distraction is laughter, have other people, read something, serve, something uplifting, go outside. Like I've been carried places just to change the scenery, because I was, it's called reverse quarantine. My blood counts went down so low that if you are exposed to any other germs, your body takes it and it can kill you. So I've been bubbleized, reverse quarantined several times. And that gift, when something's taken away, when you don't have access to that, all of a sudden you appreciate that. Like you're so excited when you get out of a room, And so it's like those little things like that, to change your scenery, to laugh, to have a distraction, because I guarantee you, if you think about the pain, it intensifies the pain. And so if you can get your mind to think about something else, whatever that is, like meditation, prayer, bringing a child in, listening to music, like retraining those parts in your brains and those neurons that are telling you you're in pain, to try and quiet them. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's really hard. But once you realize that you have the ability to do that, that gives you a sense of control in a very uncontrollable type feeling. Does that make sense? Like when you don't feel like you can control something, it gives you a power back knowing I can control something.
So I feel like you've given us a great, just so many lessons. This has been so powerful already. I want to have a really a better understanding of kind of what, in the worst challenging times. So with whatever that was, whether that was with cancer or with the Lyme disease or with all the other health complications or whichever it is, but kind of the low points and the high points. So both physically and mentally, things that were really hard that you went through, and then the things that kind of, you've shared little things that helped you get through, but kind of the bigger things. What were the lows and the highs?
Okay. Well, they probably go together. So the one that comes to mind is actually part of like a choosing joy thing. And it was when I had to tell my kids that most likely I was going to not make it. And so we had, I'm sure you can imagine in your mind, but then when you actually have to tell your kids, I'm really sorry, the doctors don't have any answers, and we actually don't know how much time we have to live. The doctor sent me home to say our goodbyes.
And how old were your kids at that time?
So as sad as this is, that became a very normal life for quite a few years. So I kept living. So at the time, let's see here, that was probably in 2016, I think.
Okay.
I think it was in 2016. I'd have to go back and read my Instagram actually to remember it. It becomes quite a flurry of events that happen. But I remember it was the doctors had sent me home. It was one of the reverse quarantines. And he was just like, you can stay here, but most likely you'll pass away. So where would you like to go? And I was like, I'd rather be home. And so we went home, and I remember telling my kids, like, listen, there's two ways we can respond to this, guys. We can kick and scream. We can be mad at God. We can be mad at the situation. We can, throw ourselves around and cry and be angry. Or we can choose to live this minute that we have, however minutes we have left, and we can play games in mom's bed, or, readapt and just spend whatever we have in this moment together. So it was the most heart-wrenching, devastating thing to watch that and have that reality set into your kids of that's a hard, I don't know if you can even imagine the responsibility you feel as a mom, because then your trial is ultimately their trial, like your situation of health is then something that they face. Their mom is dying in front of their eyes. Their mom is suffering. Their mom has to be carried places, For them, they've had to have a mom in a wheelchair with IVs hooked up to her that watches their their football games or basketball games. There's many times where they just have to put me on their back and luckily I have boys, put me on their back, give me piggyback rides, but they had to adapt and become strong enough to lift my wheelchairs in and out of cars and readapt our lives, and have a mom who wears, I have to wear face masks, and losing that part, as kids of like that, oh, don't look at me. Oh, if I'm anything other than super cool, then it's embarrassing, right? Like, especially for kids, they want to fit in, but having to us as a family learn, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. It doesn't matter their judgments. Like no one in life really knows the struggles that we're all going through, right? Whether we show it outwardly with a wheelchair or mask or IVs, we all have stuff, like deep stuff going on within us, right? Just some of us have an outward experience versus an inward experience. And so they've had to learn, and I've had to learn to let go of other people's judgments because I'm literally just fighting for my life, right? You get to that raw humility, that humbleness within ourselves of like, I'm just surviving. And it may not look pretty. It may not look good. It may look super bad on the outside, but I'm going to spend every moment, if I'm physically capable, I'm going to be present for my kids because that's the most important thing. If I'm physically able, even if it's in a wheelchair, even if I have to be on IVs in my wheelchair at their games, if I can, I'm going to be there. So those are hard and best. Does that make sense? Like it was like getting past that raw humility. I remember another time, I was on the bathroom floor. I've been on a bathroom floor more times than I can count, in such agonizing pain. But this time I remember clearly it was during chemo, and I had sores on the bottom of my feet, and I couldn't leave the bathroom because I was throwing up so much and I was so weak and in so much pain. And I just was crying out to the Lord. I'm like, why? Like, why do you not hear me? Do you not see me? Can you not see how hard this is? Like, where are you? Why am I so alone? And I remember hearing downstairs a knock on the door, and two people had come by. They were missionaries of a church, and they were like, hey, we just were walking by and wanted to see if your family needed anything. And they didn't come up or anything, but I could hear it through the bathroom floor. And then the next thing I hear is my sister-in-law felt like she needed to come over, and she was hugely pregnant. And she came and she just sat on the bathroom floor with me while I was super sick. And then 10 minutes later, a package of someone who I hadn't spoke to in years was delivered, and it was a pajamagram of these pajamas just saying, I was just thinking about you. I love you. And I just thought, he didn't take away my pain. He didn't release me from the situation, but he sent me messages of love to let me know that I was not alone. And so I remember thinking like that was a huge epiphany for me, that oftentimes we only accept answers sometimes in the way that we want. Like if you could hear me, you would take this away. If you could understand the pain, it would be gone. But what I learned was he sends us help, but just not always the way that we think. But the answers, are there if we're willing to see them, if we're willing to accept them, if we're willing to listen and adapt in different ways. So I found that often, like a typical day used to be me, if I woke up, right, it was celebration of life. We would take my blood pressure. It would be barely signs of living. And then I would drink a liter of water, and because it would, bring your blood pressure up. And then we would figure out if my limbs were working, whether or not I'd have to take the wheelchair or not. Like, could I take a few steps or could I not take a few steps? So it's always a surprise on what was going to happen. And then I would get into the shower, and I have a shower chair. I love inventions. I'm super blessed that there's inventions to make life still adaptable when your body is really unpredictable. I would take a shower, then I'd wrap my towel around me, and then I'd have to lay on the floor for a good 20, 30 minutes because it was so physically exhausting and my heart couldn't keep up with it. So my heart would go over 200 just by sitting up, and then when standing up. So it was taxing. It felt like a heart attack. So you'd have to lay down in order to reset my body to get it to say like everything's okay. And then I would go into the closet, get some clothes on. Again, I'd have to lay on the ground and wait again for my body to reset. So it would be a heart attack. And then make it to my bathroom counter. Again, I'd have to have my feet in the air and do your makeup and everything. And it was a 3-hour process to take a shower, get dressed, put your makeup on. But I felt so blessed that I was able to still do it, even though it was very adapted to a lifestyle that I used. No one thinks about that. Like I'm sure you took a shower this morning and didn't even think anything about it. You got dressed because it's just so normal, right? Like for me, once those things are taken away and you get to see how hard that is or what it's like not being able to do that, you appreciate every single little thing. So when someone feels really bad about, oh, I didn't get A, Y, Z done today, blah, 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 they have these long lists of things. I'm like, you took a shower, dude, high five, gold star. Honestly, like, because that's a really big deal in someone else's life. And we have to give ourselves those credits for those simple, small things that we are able to accomplish and realize that they are big things to some people. And then to us, like I'm sure most people never realized how important a white blood cell is. Well, when you lose all your white blood cells, man, you pray for a miracle and love every white blood cell that's grown in your body. So for me, those like the mental things and the breaking down have been in those moments of such pain. I remember breaking down when my oncologist found out, the blood work had come back positive for Lyme. And they had sent me to an infectious disease doctor. And the infectious disease doctor was like, no, it's cancer. And the cancer doctor was like, no, it's not, it's Lyme. And so there was this fight and battle. And I'm like, I don't care if you guys call it strawberry lemonade. I just want to get better. Like, whoever can make me better, don't care the name of it. Like, someone please help me. Just please help me. I want to live. I'm a mom. Like, please help me live. So the fight, the fight for that, I get the fight of the injustice, the fight of the judgment, the fight of not being helped. And I have the contrast versus cancer versus, Lyme and new diseases and other autoimmune diseases that are hard to treat. They're hard to diagnose. They're its own new field of what, epidemically what's happening. So I have such a sense of empathy and understanding of that world as well. It can be a very lonely, isolating, frustrating world as well. So those are the lows. And then the highs of those same situation is when you find that person on the other end of the phone that hears you, when you find others that are suffering at the same part that you're suffering, you bond in such a beautiful, pure way that I believe our spirits bond. Like I see you, I feel you, I understand. And even though we don't have answers and we don't know what to do, let's sit together, let's love each other, and at least you're not alone. I think of the concentration camps that way, of that, like just having another person with you that understands everything that it's like in that situation. You see them, you feel them, you hear them. Oftentimes people ask me like, why do people have to get sick? Why? All of these things, and I just thought, you on the other spectrum, when you go through such immense pain, there is equal joy on the other end of that, if not more, right? So it's going to break you to your core. It is going to be so, so hard. And you can stay there in the hard, right? Like that's when the control comes, or you can allow it to let you grow. You can allow it to open up a part of you, a strength you never knew you had, being able to control and choose joy in the darkest, dire of circumstances. I can tell you, I can attest to you that one body feels a whole lot better than the other. When you stay in misery and pain and woe pours, why is me, like it's contagious. Everybody around you sad. Everybody else is also in that place in their head, right? Versus if you choose joy. I told this to my kids. I like myself better if I'm happy, and I'm the one who has to live with me 24/7. So for my
I love
own
that.
sake and my own sanity, I'm the one who has to live with me, and so I'm going to choose joy. I neither way the situation's not going to change one way or another. I'm still going to be in this situation, but I can be happy or I can be miserable. And for me, it feels better to live with myself. And so that's another huge freeing lesson that I've learned for myself, because ultimately we're the only ones who lives with ourselves 24/7, So
Yes. Oh, I love that. It's just so obvious to me that all of this, you've been through just so much, and all of what you've been through has just really, you said you can choose to allow it to let you grow. And it's just so obvious that that's what this has done for you. And to see the way that you are, happy and choosing happiness, it's just inspirational. You truly are a living miracle. Like you said earlier, both physically, but also with what you're able to share and what you're able to radiate. So I have loved this conversation so much, and the things that have come out. And I think, no matter what we're going through, you have showed us that there's a way to choose happiness in the hard circumstances. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing that.
You're welcome. Absolutely. And I'm here for anyone who ever needs that, because that's something I believe in truly, is lifting others when they're there and they don't feel like they can.
That is awesome. Well, we'll link to your Instagram, which is at Susie Jeide. I will link to that in case anyone wants to follow and get more details about your journey. And thank you again. And thank you everyone for listening to Moms Who Know. I'm so glad that you're here listening to the Moms Who Know podcast. I appreciate you being here and taking time out of your schedule to listen to the podcast. I hope that as we go through these episodes, you're hearing things that are making a difference in your life and that make a difference to you personally. But I don't want you to just hear from me. I want to hear from you. So please join me at Instagram and Facebook at Moms Who Know Podcast to join the conversation. I want to know what you thought of the episode, what you're going to do differently because of what you just heard. And I love it when you tag me and share with your friends. Thanks for everything. Thank you most of all for being a part of the Moms Who Know podcast.